Within the confines of the lands between, there are races seemingly created by higher beings, be it outer gods, or even the Crucible. But there is a race whose origins were created by humans, whose fate is to be downtrodden, whose lives are some of the worst within the lands between. They are known as Albinaurics. As with most of our videos, let us start with the question, what are the Albinaurics? The Albinaurics are creatures supposedly created by humans. Due to this, it is believed that they are untouched by the Erdtree's grace, and their bodies come with defects that make their life difficult, to say the very least. These defects depend highly on many factors, but the most important one is whether they are the first generation Albinauric or the second. First generation Albinaurics lose usage of their legs within their lifespan, but they seem to be more intelligent than their second generation counterparts. They are able to exhibit impressive bow techniques, and though they lose their legs, the archers are able to bond with wolves in order to make up for their lack of movement. Other Albinaurics are even able to use basic sorcery such as Glintstone Pebble, and there are NPCs who we meet and help that are first generation Albinaurics. These include characters like Latenna and Pidia, who we'll talk about in a bit. Meanwhile, their second generation counterparts are far more agile. These frog-faced Albinaurics are capable of wielding bigger weapons. Their signature move is to cartwheel around their enemies. Though we don't meet any second generation Albinauric with a storyline, I did manage to find one that is a bit different from the rest. But again, we'll tackle that in a bit. For now, let us speculate on where these Albinaurics may have come from. It is unknown who truly created the Albinaurics, and whether those that created the first generation and the second generation are one and the same. But there are already many speculations on who might have created them. Let's break down each one of these possible candidates. First, and the most speculated one, is the Nox, or the Eternal Cities. It is believed that Albinaurics might be another version of the Silver Tears, either a better version or a weaker version, probably weaker though. This belief is born from the idea that both the Silver Tears and the Albinaurics are born from silver. They even share the same white blood when you strike them. The first generation Albinaurics also use silver weapons and silver armor, which is said to have come from the same silver that was the mother of the Albinaurics. The Silver Tear mask and the second generation Albinauric mask both increase arcane, and there are many more similarities between them. In line with this theory is that the reason why the Albinaurics are untouched by the grace of the Erdtree is that they were created in order to oppose the Golden Order. Is this proof that the Nox created the Albinaurics? Maybe, but we don't have any real confirmation. Another candidate for the ones who created the Albinaurics are the Carian Royals. This belief stems from Pidia, who is a servant within the Carian Royal Manor, as well as the Albinaurics village being in close proximity to Raya Lucaria Academy in Liurnia. Though, to be honest, it's also somewhat close to the Eternal Cities, they're just underground. This theory is also supported by factors such as the weapons of the Albinaurics being shaped as a crescent moon, and the Albinaurics' most vaunted savior, Loretta, Knight of the Haligtree, was formerly a Knight of the Carian Royals. Their origin may also be related with the amber egg that Renala holds, as it may be one of the possible origins of the Albinaurics. It is said that Albinaurics are born from a primordial drop of dew, the shape of which is imitated by the silver mirror shield, and that the shield is adorned by amber. This could potentially point to the amber egg's ability to birth and rebirth creatures, and the Albinaurics may have been a product or a byproduct of such birth. I mean, those born from the amber egg also have weak legs that they are unable to walk. But they have red blood, so they may not be of the same stock as the Albinaurics. But again, as with the other theory, we have no real confirmation of this. These two theories could be the origins of the Albinaurics. For me personally though, I think it's a little bit of both. Ronnie is familiar with the Eternal Cities, so the Carian royals could have gotten information from their studies of them and thus created their own form of artificial life. But with the oppression of the Albinaurics, they would eventually turn against their sorcerer masters, hence why their armor and shields protect mostly against magic and frost. But whether these are true or not, I leave it to you to decide. Let me tell you of the difficulties of the Albinaurics, and of those who fight for their future, of their perilous journey to a land where they'd be free of suffering, to Miquella's Haligtree. The Albinaurics have always been treated as nothing but slaves and experiments. This is most evident within the Volcano Manor. The Albinaurics here may have been under the employ of Rykard before his turn to blasphemy, but after which they became nothing more than a torturer's plaything. This was the immovable fate of all Albinaurics. But this was a fate that the Royal Knight Loretta wished to change. With the fall of the Carian royals and the knights falling into disarray, Loretta would leave the manor, leaving only a spell to keep the manor from being taken by any invaders. A spell that was potent enough to ward off the Knights of Cuckoo's invasion. There was a rumor that Loretta was an Albinauric herself, but it is never confirmed if it is true. I personally am on the belief that it is true. A rare Albinauric who possessed the strength to help her own kind. Though her legs may have failed her, she would instead ride a mighty steed, and like the other Albinaurics, she excelled in her archery. Through her capabilities, she sought to find a place where the Albinaurics would be free from the oppression they receive. She and those able-bodied Albinaurics would travel far north to the hidden lands of the Haligtree, a land where those who have no place in the lands between are welcome, under the banner of unalloyed gold, within the service of Lord Miquella. Loretta would be able to secure passage and a place for the Albinaurics, but for reasons unknown, she could not journey herself to retrieve her fellows. Instead, this task was given to a young Albinauric named Latenna, and from the Consecrated Snowfields, she would journey to Liurnia, towards the village of the Albinaurics. Latenna's goal within the village would be an item known as the Birthing Droplet, likely an item that is akin to the primordial dew to which the Albinaurics were created from. It was likely safeguarded within the village to ensure the future of their people, should Loretta's quest have failed. But now that it had succeeded, the droplet must now be transported to the Haligtree. However, their journey does not go as planned. The village is attacked by Ensha, who was under the employ of the All-Hearing One, or the Tarnished, known as Sir Gideon Ofnir. Together with a depraved perfumer and an omen killer, Ensha would lay waste to the village, killing many and driving those that survived to utter madness, all in an attempt to acquire a sacred medallion that would lead them to Miquella's Haligtree. Latenna would flee from the village and hide within a cave, but she would be followed by Ensha and a bloodhound knight, where her wolf Lobo would be killed. Seeing she did not have the medallion on her, they leave her alive, probably to extract information later on, as without her wolf she could go nowhere. As a side note, I don't know if this is an oversight or something intentional, but the corpses within this village are commoners and not Albinaurics. If you attack them, they bleed red instead of white. So I'm not sure if this was intentional that the Albinaurics in the village bleed red, or if maybe their blood doesn't turn white until later on in their life, but I'm stumped on this one. This is where we, the Tarnished who would be Lord, would come in. Armed with information from a finger reader, we would know where to find the Albinauric who wielded Miquella's favor. Within a pot, we would find old Albus. As per the instruction of the finger reader, we take pity on him, and he entrusts the first half of the medallion to us. But whether by injuries or simply the end, he would perish before us, leaving us questioning where the other half could be. Upon defeating Ensha and confronting Gideon though, he would tell us to seek Latenna within the lakeside cave. And when we meet her, she would understandably be angry. but after showing her the medallion and explaining the situation, she would come to trust us. And she asks that we do her a great service of escorting her back to the Consecrated Snowfields. In exchange, she would tell us the location of the second half of the medallion. As the brave tarnished that we are, we accept her offer and journey towards the second half of the medallion, towards Castle Soul. Now, oddly enough, there are Albinaurics within the Castle Soul, but all of them have been driven mad and seem to have been tortured. They are used as an alarm system at which the ghosts of the Knights of Soul would appear, but after exterminating this area of the ghosts and its commander, we would find the second half of the medallion here at the top of the castle. Upon reaching the Consecrated Snowfields, Latenna would beckon us to go past the town of Ordina, towards the apostate derelict, and within we would find an Albinauric who towers over them, one who is named Pidia, and within her, Latenna surrenders the birthing droplet.
O young yet towering sister of ours, let the birthing droplet in and create life for us, for all the Albinaurics. Thank you. I finally fulfilled my purpose. Our young yet towering sister will give us hope. Now that nothing is left unfinished, I will join you in battle to the bitter end. And when the fighting is done, then you may lay me to rest. Beside Lobo, my dear wolf.
This would probably ensure the future of the Albinaurics within the town of Ordina. But this is not the end of their story. Aside from the Albinauric archers within the town of Ordina, traversing through the Haligtree and looking around, you would find no Albinaurics within. Even after defeating the Royal Knight Loretta, and after reaching the depths of the Haligtree, you would not find the Albinaurics. However, you would discover the truth. The young Lord Miquella was no longer there. While the Albinaurics had hoped to find salvation through Lord Miquella, the young Empyrean would be taken away by Mog, the Lord of Blood. He paved his way through the town of Ordina carrying the young Miquella. We could follow the route that he took, and we would find those who had witnessed the taking. We would even be invaded by one of his sanguine nobles, and upon reaching the bloody portal headed towards his dynasty, we would find a single second-generation Albinauric who had stayed behind, seemingly waiting for his people to come back. This Albinauric is a little different from the usual second generations that we see, as this one is capable of casting the Discus of Light incantation. Perhaps it already had learned it from its time within the Haligtree, or perhaps his faith towards Lord Miquella had grown enough to be able to draw his incantations. After entering the bloody portal and arriving within the Mogwin dynasty, we find many Albinaurics here. It is likely that they had followed Mog here in order to save Lord Miquella, but their bodies seem to have been changed, corrupted by the blood of the Formless Mother. It is unknown whether these Albinaurics are still here to truly save Miquella, or perhaps they are now here to serve the Lord of Blood under the promise of new power. As the tarnished who would be Lord, would the Albinaurics have a place in your world? Would you come to the aid of the downtrodden and the meek, or would you continue their cycle of suffering?